In this lesson, we're going to be exploring the coupé, otherwise known as a cut over. However, before we get into the examples, I'm going to explain a little bit as to what a coupé is and why you would be wanting to employ it when fencing. So the first thing to note is a coupé, or cut over, as I'm going to refer to it as for the rest of this lesson, is a disengagement where you are, instead of going underneath the blade, you are going over top of your opponent's blade. So you're essentially going up and down. You can finish in the same line, or you can finish in a different line. But essentially what you're doing is you're raising your blade over your opponent's blade and cutting it in. The reason why you want to do this is that in the event that they're going to parry you, so you raise your point, you're going to pass their point, they parry, there's nothing there, and then you slide in right there. The reason why you want to do this instead of going under is that sometimes they can deepen their on guard, they can deepen their parry. So even though you try to do a disengagement, you can still get caught by them because their blade is a lot longer, and the idea is they want to catch you with the fork of their blade on the foil. If you are doing the cut over, you are going to be going over the weakest part of their blade. So if they're trying to parry, it's not going to be very effective if they're catching you with the foil of their blade. So going over, as opposed to under, gives you a little bit more of an advantage. And what you're going to see with the tip is that when it goes up, it's still traveling forward. So you're still finishing in a direct attack, more or less, and that you are going up, and then the point comes down and forward. You can also apply a cut over as a flick, which we're going to explore later in this lesson as well, which is where you go up, and instead of immediately dropping the tip and extending forward, you are going to be bringing it down as you would with a flick, where your arm is still extending up and dropping the tip down on top of an oblique target. So that's essentially what a cut over is. It's just a different form of avoiding a parry, but instead of going underneath the parry, you are going over top of the parry. Jason's going to help us explore a cut over from a closer distance. He's going to be doing it with a advance, so he's going to step in with his cut over. This is going to be the second closest of our three cut overs in this lesson. What I want you to notice, though, is that in all of his attempts, he's going to have to effectively start with his hand first. So instead of going forward, he needs to raise the blade. That goes first before he steps in. If he steps in too early, and this is the same for all three actions, he's going to have a lot more difficulty clearing the opponent's parry. So he's going to have a lot more difficulty clearing my blade when applying a cut over. So the distance has to be effective, but the start has to be with your hand first. So we're going to stand on guard here. And what you can see is from this action, we need to be close enough that our blades are just crossing. They're not just meeting, but they're crossing a little bit. That's just the foil. We don't want to be this close because then it's too late to apply a cut over. So I'm right here, and you're going to see that Jason's going to apply his cut over first with his hand, and then when he starts to advance, the blade comes forward. So it goes up and out. So we'll do this again. And again, you're going to see it's going to start with his hand, then his foot. Just like that. So one thing you're going to notice, though, is that an effective cut over, you're not going to want to stay up here too long because your opponent's going to realize that you have gone above their line. So he's going to want to make it a little bit more fluid. So he's going to go up and out. Just like that. So again, remember, regardless of your distance, you want the action to be fluid. So if I were to do it against Jason, I'm going to go up and out. It's a lot faster, so you can see I'm still starting with the hand that's going up and out. As soon as you've cleared your opponent's blade, right here, this is where you're going forward. You're not going to start here because now you're caught. You want to go up, out, just like that. Make sure the hit is occurring with the arrival of your foot, not after. Alexander is going to help demonstrate a cut over utilizing a lunge instead of a step in. Same rules apply as we saw with Jason. You want to make sure your hand starts first, but this is going to be the greatest distance you're going to want to execute this this action from. You don't want to necessarily do a lot of advances and then turn it into a lunge because your opponent will become aware of what you're trying to do. So we're going to stand on guard here, and I'm going to explain why the action is effective or ineffective. So in the on guard position, you can see that our blades are just meeting. They've crossed just a little bit. Our distance is greater than that which we had with Jason. This means you have to apply a little bit less with your cut over because you're a fair distance farther away. So you're going to start with your hand, and then you're going to start with your blade right there. So this is effective because the action is small, you're cutting over, and then you're extending up. You can do this even faster. You can do it from a different line. So we'll start here instead for the outside line. And you're going to pull and lunge. Just like that. It's very effective. As you can see, you're doing it from a safe distance. So should you have trouble if you get found by the blade, so she's going to pull and find the blade. She still has the chance to recover back and defend herself with second intention. Whereas when you're closer, like we were with Jason, you don't have that safety net of retreating because we're already so close. So again, with this action, make sure that your blades are just meeting. They're only overlapping a little bit, and you're going to cut over and lunge, just like that. This is a very effective action because instead of going underneath, I can deepen my parry. It's very hard to escape that with a classical disengagement. You're going to find it a lot easier to go over the blade and then finish. Because I'm going to need to raise my arm a little bit more to catch the blade as opposed to making the parry with my hand. Coach Isaac is going to assist us in demonstrating the cut over, but finishing with a flick as opposed to a direct extension of the arm. Now this is very effective in that you can still step in when you've done your cut over. It makes it difficult to potentially finish direct to the surface of the target that's facing you, but it does still leave the oblique surface, so the shoulders, the flanks, the upper back. It leaves those accessible for an appropriate flick. Do remember though that this flick requires elevation of the arm and the hand in relation to the target. That is, when you cut over, instead of extending forward as you would typically, you're going to extend up. And this is very effective because you've already pulled the blade up. You're going to follow it. You're going to extend your arm up and forward, and then you're going to drive the tip down, pushing down with your thumb. So it's going to be like this. So make sure the elevation is effective. Now what we're going to do here is a few of these actions, and I'm going to explain why they're effective or why they are ineffective. So we're on guard, and you can already see that our distance is pretty close. It's about comparable with where we were with Jason. He's going to initiate his cut over and finish on my shoulder. So in this case, you can see that the flick is ineffective. It's actually coming in front of me, and it's not even landing with the tip. It's going flat. And the reason for this is the distance is off. He's too far away, and he's also elevated his arm quite a bit. So it's like this. Now, finding your distance is important. So if you're going to practice this before you employ it, make sure you can find the distance. So I've got a direct extension forward to his shoulder. I'm going to take a step in. I'm going to let my arm rise as I close the distance. This is the effective elevation I need for my hand to bring the flick down on the target. So we're going to apply that again. So again, you can see our distance is close. We're going to do the cut over. And there you have it. So the elevation is effective. He's pulled his arm up, starting with his hand, and he extends up and he drops it down. So let's see if we can do it one more time. We can try it in the same line. And as you can see, the elevation of the hand is above the target he's trying to hit. And because he's done the cut over, all he has to do is step in. And the momentum of the cut is going to assist bringing the point down on the target. So a cut over is a very good transition into a flick because it gives you momentum, it helps you control the distance, and it helps you get the point down on the target.